Good evening, everybody. I'm Andrea Miller. I'm the founding board member from Center for Common Ground, and I am so glad that so many of you were able to join us tonight for our civic engagement training. We have a little two question poll that is on the screen. And I'm going to give people a couple more minutes to complete it, and then I will share the results with everybody and we will get started. So right now, 75 people have completed the poll. And out of the 75 people, there's the question, have you ever contacted an elected official, whether it's federal or state? And almost everybody, with the exception of one person, has said yes. They have reached out to an elected official to talk to them about a bill. And then the second question was, how was that contact made? 14 people went to DC and visited legislators in their offices. 26 people visited people in the district. 61 people made phone calls. 61 people also sent emails, and 18 people have sent text messages. So thank you all. I've got another group of people that I am bringing in the room. Let's get them in. Let's give them just a second to complete the poll. But more people have gone to district office visits than capital visits. And I probably should have said capital rather than DC, because if it's a state official, they're not going to be in DC, they're going to be in your state capital. And most people have either done an email to a legislator or a phone call to a legislator. So that is really, really great. What we're going to be talking about tonight is of all those different methodologies of contacting a legislator, how should they really be used, and what are some of the most effective ways to do digital advocacy or digital civic engagement, and then in-person civic engagement when you actually go and see either the elected official, or normally you're going to be at a meeting with staff. So I've got one more person to bring in the room, and I am going to end the polling right now. And I'm going to share the results. So this is what you all said. Thank you very, very much. So I have kind of an idea of how I'm going to want to pace this. So I'm going to get ready to share my screen. Since I'm recording, I'm going to mute you all. I'm going to grab my PowerPoint, and we are going to get started as soon as the PowerPoint cooperates. There it is. I am with Center for Common Ground. I'm based in Virginia, so that means I am actually physically close enough to DC where if it wasn't for COVID, I would probably be going there a lot. Now, our mission, and it has not changed one bit, is to empower underrepresented voters. And we've got a number of campaigns that we are running. Let me vote, count my vote, reclaim our vote. That's the one that probably everybody here knows. Vote equality, and then our newest project, the Democracy Center Project. So, because most of the elections are over, 2021 is going to be the year of civic engagement. 2020 was the year of civic elections. So when we look at that democracy coin, it's got two sides. We're done with elections. Now we've got to look at the people we elected, and we've got to make sure they understand what our agenda for governance happens to be, because we, the people, are a critical part of democracy. Voting is just one piece. There's a whole nother side. And what Center for Common Ground has committed to in 2021 is working with people on the ground in many of the states where we called and texted and sent postcards to help them be part of civic engagement. Because now that the elections are over, almost all the other groups are gone and the communities are there, and they've just been left to their own devices. So, with an eye toward 2022 and 2024, I know that this strategy has been the strategy that has resulted in many, many, many failed elections. So, we are committing our time, our training time, and many things to helping our volunteers get ready to do civic engagement. And then we are also working with folks that were our in target state people that we were working to help be able to vote. So at the beginning of 21, now our legislative priorities are going to change as we go through the election cycle and new bills get introduced. But right now, based on what's introduced at the federal level, we're looking at the For the People Act. We are looking at the the long name is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, which has not yet been introduced, DC statehood, constitutional right to vote, which has not been introduced, or at least not the good version, by Mark Pocan. And then whatever other legislation we see that is really good, economic, social, racial, and climate justice legislation. And right now, one of our big priorities is the state of Georgia. I'm going to say, if we had been able to begin this sooner, if the Georgia election had not gone on so long, we would have tried to engage in the great state of Mississippi, where basically democracy died on February 2nd. Every voting piece of legislation that they introduced died in committee that day. Every raise the minimum wage bill that they introduced died in committee that day. And there was no one to help the folks in Mississippi advocate the way they wanted to. So I'm already having those conversations with them. Next year will be a different story because they go in early just like we do. So anyway, why we have to engage, it's our responsibility. If we want to set the agenda for government instead of corporations, we've got to get out there with this is what we the people want. So we've got to make sure that our voices are heard in Congress, in our state house, and in our city councils and county councils. Now, in order to get what you want, there's a certain amount of pressure showing power that you're going to need to create. So part of that direct pressure can be you can write letters to elected officials. You can use petitions so that you can show this is how many people support this or oppose this. You can make phone calls, you can set up meetings, and you can have capital civic engagement days. So again, because of COVID, our days aren't really in capitals, DC or our state house. It's mostly over Zoom. And then there's also indirect pressure where we educate our community by writing letters to the editors and op-eds. What I did in Georgia when we bought all those billboards, again, with COVID, we're not doing that many protests, but we have done some picketing, building coalitions. So all of those things, all of those tactics and actions are about turning up the pressure on people that have been elected to office to get them to, number one, know what we the people want, and number two, be moved to give us what we want. Now, citizen engagement or civic engagement, what is it? It's turning no into maybe, maybe into yes, and yes into let me help build support. So, in other words, we're going to work with people who really are exactly like us. They just managed to get themselves elected to public office. They're not smarter than we are. A lot of them aren't as smart as we are, but they sit in the seat of power. And what we want to do is move them in our direction. Now, we are going to be working to influence, persuade, bring pressure. And here's something that I see a lot of organizations not doing. The pressure needs to be consistent and persistent. One of the things that I would always ask classes when I was teaching this in person is I would always say, who are the most powerful lobbyists, advocates, whatever you want to call them? Who are the people who are best at getting what they want, even when they've been told no over and over and over and over again? And people try to think of law firms and all kinds of other things. And then here's the follow-up question. How many of you have ever told a child that they are not going to get something that they want? And how many of you eventually ended up giving that child exactly what you said they weren't going to get? It wasn't that they were smarter than you. It wasn't that they were bigger than you and they intimidated you. They were consistent and persistent with the pressure they brought. And they finally wore you down. Now, effective civic engagement. It's going to be an ongoing series of planned actions, and they're going to be coordinated to achieve the desired effect. So they're going to be carefully planned. Do we have good language explaining this is what we want? If you ask people for something and they can't figure out what you want, that's a problem. Your ask must be, very, very clear. It needs to be carefully researched. Is there a reason for that no to turn into maybe? What is that elected official going to get that they don't currently have now? And then it needs to be carefully executed, meaning that once you know this is what we want to say to the legislator, then now we are going to deliver our message in a way that will be meaningful and impactful. And we're going to talk about some of the engagement we're going to be doing. We've already started it a little bit. Now, when you're building a civic engagement campaign, you have to have a goal. What is it that you want? Do you want them to support a bill? Do you want them to oppose a bill? Because realistically, or do you want them to introduce a bill? That's really all elected officials can do. What do you want? All right, we want X. And normally there's a bill that's going to do X, or we don't want X. Target who is the right person who can give you what you want. One of the reasons people stop voting is they don't understand civics. Many people will tell you, oh, I only vote in presidential elections. Well, if you only vote in presidential elections and you're unhappy about how high your electricity bill, the president doesn't really control the amount of your electricity bill. So, in many instances, people really don't understand who has the power to give them what they want. And they start assuming that the president or their US senator or at least their US rep should be able to resolve whatever it is that is causing them stress, that is creating their pain point. And when they are misdirecting who can really give them what they want, they become frustrated because they don't get it. And then they decide, well, voting doesn't work, so I'm just not going to vote anymore. In many, many instances, it turns out that people believe that their federal officers can do something when in reality, it's their state and or very local governments or something else that's really in charge. Now, tactics. We're going to talk about a lot of tactics. We already mentioned a number of them. We can protest, we can email, we can write letters. Those are all tactics. But if you're going to be strategic about how you use your tactics, there's a time that's optimal for some tactics where it may not be the best time to use another. And then research. Are there upcoming deadlines? Is there an impending vote? Does this elected official that you're trying to move, have they made statements in the past that would cause you to believe they are in support of your position or they're opposed? One of the things that I've been working on since I was 11 years old, and I'm still working on it, is ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment. So we currently have 38 states that have ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, and it still hasn't been added to the Constitution. So we're looking at a number of different strategies. Fight it out in the Supreme Court. We've sued the archivist. Put that in the Constitution, and the archivist is going to say, but President Trump told me not to. Or go to Congress and tell Congress remove the ratification deadline. Well, we have people working on all three. And one of the interesting pieces of information that we got was Congressman Tim Scott of South Carolina had made statements to various groups, women's groups in South Carolina, that he actually supported the Equal Rights Amendment. So we were like, really? So there was a meeting with his office yesterday on, does he support it? Would he be willing to be a co-sponsor? So again, this was research into a statement that a Republican senator had made about a topic that does have bipartisan support, meaning we have Democrats and we have Republicans that are currently co-sponsors of this bill. One of the things we are looking at is we already passed removing the deadline in the US House. We have never passed it in the US Senate. So we're looking at how do we get 60 votes? Because that means we are going to have not just Democrats, but Democrats and Republicans. So with all the Democrats, we've got 50 votes. We need 10 more from the other side. 9 more from the other side because we already have Senator Lisa Murkowski. Now, types of civic engagement, petitions. Everybody has signed a petition. Now, petitions, I don't care what they say, do not go directly to the elected official. Let me repeat that again. Petitions do not go directly to elected officials. It is a way to show how many people support your idea. All right? Petitions don't go to the electeds. Now, there are email campaigns where they want you to give more information. They want your name, they want your address, so that you can show the elected official you are really their constituent. And if it's Congress, they're going to want your phone number, possibly. And then there's phone calls or call-in campaigns. And finally, office visits, either in person or virtual. These types of civic engagement are listed in order of least effective to most effective. The most effective one is you sit down and you talk to a legislator or a staffer. The next one, it isn't really number two. It's kind of like you've got 1A and maybe like 1F. It's very, very effective, especially in a time of COVID. You place a phone call to the elected's office and you tell them, I want you to support or I want you to oppose. And things have bill numbers or names. Be sure to use either one or both. You're calling as a citizen. So as a citizen, you can be as explicit as possible so the legislator isn't confused about which bill you're talking about. And then email campaigns. Email campaigns are designed to flood their offices with emails. Normally, when they figure out their machine generated emails, they're going to read or print out the first one. And then they're just going to keep account of how many they got. And they do count them. Now, in Congress, federally, if a legislator gets 10 phone calls or 15 emails, the eyebrow is going to go up. Ooh, people know that this is there. We are going to look and see how people are coming down on this issue. Are there more people who support it or who oppose it? So get those numbers straight in your mind again. 10 phone calls to a federal office or 15 emails. It's not a lot. These numbers are small because very few people bother to contact their elected representative. I think you'd be amazed at the percentage of people who have no idea who their elected representative is, which is one of the reasons why nobody bothers to contact them. So they do count whatever you do. In your state house, 3 calls, 5 letters, and ooh, we've got a hot one. Now, preparation and planning, make allies, build coalitions. And that's one of the things that almost everybody on this Zoom call has done. You're part of a group. It might be your neighbors and friends, it might be an official group, but it's not just you. What makes digital impactful is you can get an action, a petition, a hey, let's call our legislators, or we're going to email our legislator, and then you can share it with a lot of people that are probably in the same general area that are probably represented by the same person. So when you have a coalition, when you start getting other people to join you, it shows the legislator you are not the only person who has this belief. What every elected official wants more than anything, even money, is they want votes. They want to get elected the next time an election comes around. And if suddenly there is an issue that is very popular with their constituents, they want to kind of follow that issue. Is this something that we will be able to campaign on or campaign against? That is how many politicians look at issues. Can I campaign on it and get elected, or can I campaign against it and get elected? They don't necessarily look at the issues the way we do. Are there national organizations so that we can have a few people that have signed the letter? That's why I get almost every day a sign-on letter from some organization. Will you do join our sign-on letter about bill blah, blah, blah? And then right on the form, it says, are you a national organization? So in other words, you could have people in multiple states and in multiple districts, or are you local? So very important. Again, it is a show of strength. We want to give you an idea of how many people want you to do this. Know your target, what can you expect, and anticipate your opposition. Going back to the Equal Rights Amendment, you would think, who could really be against equality for women? That just sounds like a very basic concept. And it's not even equality for women. I'm going to say it's gender equality. We will not discriminate against people based on their gender. If you're male, if you're female, if you're LGBTQIA, if you haven't made up your mind what you are, it doesn't matter. we are not going to discriminate against you based on gender. Well, one of the things that corporate America has done very, very successfully is before we had immigrants to be the other, they had women. And they realized that when there weren't unions, because in a labor union, regardless of your gender, everybody gets the same pay for the same job. When there is no labor union, unscrupulous businesses can threaten their male employees with, well, we could get women in here and pay them 30% less, and they'd be happy to get the work. And that is what we have seen in so many instances. They use women, gay, transgender people to drive wages down. And that is just wrong. But that is an unfortunate reality. In 2017, when we looked at the racial pay gap between women and white men, to a white man's dollar, an Asian woman got 81 cents to a white man's dollar. A Black woman or a white woman got 82, not 82, 78 cents to a white man's dollar. An African American woman was 65 cents. A Native American woman was 60 cents. And a Latino woman was 55 cents, doing the same job. And not a lot has changed because there is no Equal Rights Amendment. Now, digital civic engagement tools. We have acquired a tool called Trackbill because we need to be able to look at what is going on in the legislatures in not only the US Congress, but also in a lot of individual states. And so rather than going to each individual state and trying to look and see what's going on in their legislature, we chose a tool that allows us to simply look across all 50 states if we want to, put in a keyword and say what legislation has been introduced. So one of the keywords that we used was voting. And that's where we started to see some very disturbing trends. Now, this is important. If you are interested in civic engagement, if you have an iPhone or you have an Android, there is a free app and it is called Trackbill. And that will work on your phone. That will give you the ability to look for legislation in any state, your own state, or the US Congress, or all 50, and get a feeling for what is going on. Now, what also came in the box with Trackbill is a new tool, Ignite Advocacy, where on one page, we have the ability to show people the problem and then give them the opportunity to contact their elected official. And all they need to know is their name and their address. They've got that part. And then we automatically look up who their legislator is. We show it to them, and then we give them the opportunity to write them an email. We've already given them a sample email with all the right language, and they can just push the button and send it, or they can add some things. If they're on Twitter, they can click the Twitter button and they can tweet at their legislator. And then if they want to call them, there's a little tab that says call, they can click, and the legislator's phone number is right there. Now, I do a lot of work or have done a lot of work in the past around Social Security, older people. And a lot of older people, or at least 5 years ago, not all of them had cell phones. Many of them had landlines. And we discovered a number of them did not have long distance. So when there was a big effort to call DC, they couldn't participate. So we bought another tool called New Mode, where they could put in their phone number and then our system would call them back. So, in other words, they didn't originate the call, they just answered it, and then it would automatically connect them to their legislator. And then one of the other tools that's in the box is the ability to write a letter to the editor. So we can use this tool, we can give people a sample letter to the editor, and most importantly, we can show them these are all the newspapers within a 50-mile radius of your zip code. And what a lot of people told us was, I had no idea some of these newspapers existed. And while it's kind of doubtful the Washington Post is going to print your op ed, there are some smaller papers, and periodically the smaller papers would print the op ed. So we've already talked about be prepared and well organized. Another place where you can go and follow this is federal legislation only. It's updated a little quicker than Trackbill is congress.gov, where that is right there. It is maintained by the people that are staffers in Congress. So this is what Trackbill looks like. Now, in Georgia, they identified or introduced a lot of bad bills. Here are some of them. You have to submit identification with your absentee ballot request. They also introduced a bill that banned drop boxes. How many people, when you were calling Georgia, wanted to know could they use a drop box? And so we sent people to drop off their ballots at a drop box. This bill, there are also bills that say if you are a new voter in Georgia, you lived in Florida for the November 3rd election, you moved to Georgia and you got there on December 1st, or let's say you got there on November 15th, they're going to say, nope, you can't vote in a Georgia runoff election. If you turned 18 for the November 3rd election, nope, you can't vote in a Georgia runoff election. So these are the kind of bills that we were able to see with a simple vote. And then anything that we wanted to track, we could just click it, and now we get an email every time something changes with that bill. Now, this is new mode, patch through calling. Here's a problem, put in your name, put in your information. Who are you supposed to call? And then when you click the big red button, it automatically calls and patches you through. All right, I dummied up that screen. I don't really live in California. I gave it a fake address. This is the new Ignite advocacy tool. We don't have the John Lewis Voter Rights Advancement Act yet. We're expecting that in March. So on this side, there would be information about it. Now, I already put in my address, so this is my representative. So I can click sign in with Twitter, and then I'm going to tweet this directly at him. There's an email down below, and then at the bottom of the email, there's a blue button, email him, and then see there's the one that says call. If I wanted to call him, I could click the call tab. Now, if you want to call all the members of a committee, when a vote is imminent in a committee, it is fair to call all the members of the committee, even if you are not a constituent, all right? And you are going to ask them to vote yes on this bill, which did pass out of committee and did pass on the floor of the Virginia House. But here is a list. This is what call looks like of all the members of the committee. And you can scroll down and then you can call each one. If you do this action on your phone, when you click on the phone button, it automatically sends that number to your dialer, and all you have to do is push the final button to let it dial. So these are the new tools that we are bringing in to make civic engagement easier. Now, we've all gotten the emails. Here are all the really bad bills or the really great bills or whatever. Now, at the bottom, click here to find out who your legislator is, and then send them an email. Nobody does that. So with something like this, we make it easy to get people started. People don't want to write their legislators or call them for that matter, because they're very concerned that what if somebody asks me a question? I won't know the answer. How exactly should I say that? I'm not exactly sure of the messaging. So by building tools like this removes all the concerns that people have. Now, in person, I spent 10 years going to Capitol Hill on in-person office visits. For 8 of those 10 years, I led a team on Capitol Hill for in-person office visits. So if we had a team of 10 people, all 10 of us did not go visit the same office at once. You're going to show numbers in the field. If you're doing a rally, you want a lot of people. If you're going to do an office visit with an elected official, don't bring 10 people. You want to bring no more than 5. Now, your group's 3 to 5 people, and it's very important to have one person who really understands the ins and outs of the bill. Because if that elected official currently has, as far as you can tell, no position, they don't seem to be for it, they don't seem to be against it, they're just neutral, they may not know exactly what this bill does, and they just haven't taken the time to figure out what it does. So you are there to educate them. So it's very important to have that person who knows that bill. And you want to try to have at least one person who can vote in that district. So whenever we do email directly to legislators, our emails always start as a voter in your district. So, yo, buddy, I can vote for you or I can vote against you. I am a voter in your district. Not that I'm just living there. This is where I vote. Now, it is great if you can get a business leader. Elected officials want to support and respect business leaders because business leaders could be the source of connections and donations. They respect faith leaders. Faith leaders have congregations. They could get invited to come to that church and meet the members or come to that faith institution. And then, of course, community leaders. Community leaders, by their very nature, are people who lead in the community and you know people. And so, if any of those folks can be part of your engagement team, this is really, really great. Now, if you know that the person you're going to visit is a veteran, and now after January 6th, this is going to get weird and interesting. We used to always say, if possible, bring along a veteran. I'm going to say, bring along a veteran for peace. So some of these other folks, they may be veterans, but they may have some very interesting and bizarre beliefs, and you really don't want to be going through that when you are having a meeting about something entirely different. Handouts. Never go into a meeting with an elected official without something to leave behind stating exactly what you want them to do. We want you to vote yes on, and then you have a couple of paragraphs where you make very salient points about why they want to vote yes or no, whatever it is. And then you also, if you have a sheet of talking points, you might want to give that to the staffer, especially if the staffer seems to really be going, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's an important point. Watch that staffer's reaction to your points. So you've got an official letter to the elected official. And then you've got, oh, here, I'm more than happy to share my talking points so that you can review them with your boss. Staffers always really appreciate that. If you're going to set up a meeting, um, generally on their website, there will be a phone number and an email address where you can request a meeting. Most meetings now are probably going to be virtual. I was on a virtual meeting today with Senator Cardin's office. Um, it is going to be very rare you're going to actually meet the elected official, although depending on who is in your group, if the staffer goes over with the member who's coming, the member may choose to sit in and join you in the meeting. So that's always a possibility. And then where are you going to meet? Are you going to DC? Are you meeting in a district office or are you meeting online? I'm not really sure how long online meetings are going to last when we can get together in person again. I kind of have a feeling they may remain. Now, about federal officers, a decision to co-sponsor a bill is made wherever the legislative director is. And normally the legislative director is domiciled in DC. So when you visit a district office, you are providing them with information. They will then call the DC office and say, we had constituents in today and they really wanted us to get on bill ding, ding, ding. And they had some really good points. I think it would play well with our voters. And that's about the way the conversation is going to go. And then the member will decide, yep, put me on that bill, or we're still not really sure. Or again, it may not be the member, it may be the legislative director. So again, all those petitions that don't go anywhere, that's when you say, and we have 8,500 people in your district who signed a petition in support of this. You don't need to show up with a stack of 8,500 pages. Nobody does that anymore. What you can do is you can simply tell them that's how many signatures you have. Or when we used to do these deliveries in DC and we would have 200,000, 500,000, 5 million, we would frequently give them a great big box, and in the box was a thumb drive. That's if we were doing a presentation and the media was there. So all depends who's seeing the presentation. Is it just you? And if it's online, you can just tell them how many people signed your petition. Now, meetings. We did this today. There should be a facilitator who is going to run the meeting and introduce the other people who are going to speak. The facilitator may not be the bill expert. They might be, they don't have to be. You need a storyteller, hopefully a constituent who can say, if we had this bill, this would have prevented me, helped me, allowed me to, or whatever their story is in support of your position. Ooh, there was a constituent there. This woman is working 3 jobs to support her children who are excellent students in school, and her youngest child has a disease. Ooh, wow. Never thought about how inequality, if she made more money, then maybe she could get down to 1 job and be there for her children. You need somebody who is not scared to make the ask. The, well, now that we have explained all the benefits of this bill, if you're talking to a staffer, would you recommend that Representative Center, whomever, co-sponsor this bill? If you ask the staffer, will you guarantee that your boss will co-sponsor the bill? They can't speak for their boss, and they won't, but they can speak for themselves. Did you move them? If you're talking to the elected official, then you can ask them, will you co-sponsor this bill? When I was doing Hill visits and I was going up with a team, we would, on a very slow day, visit 70 offices. So every rule and every suggestion that I have made to you, we broke all of them. We never made appointments. We just showed up, barged in, because frequently it would give me the opportunity to catch a member of Congress that was there in their office. And I would walk in, I would talk to the staffer, and I would say, I need 30 seconds of their time. And often the member would come out because they were dying to know what I was going to talk them into in 30 seconds. And if I could get 30 seconds, I can think of only one time where I didn't get the member on the bill. And frequently the member would look over at the staffer and go, why am I not on that bill? And the staffer would frequently say, because nobody ever explained it like that. So have a good explanation. You probably don't need to be prepared to like take 30 seconds to try to talk them into being on a bill. But I was going to see 40 offices. I wasn't planning on spending a lot of time in any offices. And if I could get a legislator, they knew, ooh, I was not going to waste their time. They needed to talk to me for a minute, and I was going to say, are you on? And they would go, okay, yeah. You need an educator, somebody who's got facts and other info. That's kind of your bill expert. And then you need a secretary. When we're online, we really don't need a secretary, but we do need the position. Making sure you've got the email addresses of whoever attends the meeting from the office, so that you can A, send them a thank you note, and B, follow up with them on whether or not the member is going to get on the legislation. And then you're going to use the legislative tracking service to make sure their name shows up. Meeting dues, engage the staffer. The staffer is your friend This is the person that you are potentially going to come back and meet over and over and over again. You want them to get to know you, that when you come in, you're organized, you don't waste their time, and you've got a bill that could be of interest to them. That's why you're there. And the lobby meeting agenda, again, when I'm by myself, if I get a member, I'm 30 seconds. If you have a meeting, then the meeting, they expect it's going to be longer. 2 minutes to introduce people. So and so, so and so. Again, this is the owner of this company. This person is a veteran, they served in Afghanistan, whatever it is. Why you're here. We're here because we want you to co-sponsor, or we want you to vote against. Make it clear, give the bill name, give the bill number. Not all bills have names, all bills have numbers. And then if you've got petitions, there are 3,500 people in your district who have signed a petition in support of what we just told you. And then again, the facts and the history, it depends upon what it is. If you've got a lot of numbers, they may temporarily be kind of blown away by the numbers. And then a story, very short, and then the ask. Will you ask your boss to co-sponsor bling, bling, bling? Or if you're talking to the legislator, will you co-sponsor bling, bling, bling? And then are there any other questions? If I get a positive action, I normally say, are there other members that I should talk to about this? Members, elected members, they know each other. And if someone thinks favorably or is willing to think favorably about what you just said, they have a feeling for other elected officials who would potentially feel the same way. And they may say, have you talked to so and so? So that's going to be very, very important. Make sure you go and see all the people that they recommend, because in your follow-up, that is another item that you can follow up on. And then you can say, and thank you very much for giving me the names of those 3 other members of Congress. I spoke with them and they're on board. Are there any other people that you can think of? And then wrap up, thank you, and go. So that is the Andrea Miller quick school of doing civic engagement. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I see we've got a ton of questions in the chat. So, and the PowerPoint will be in the Slack channel. All righty. Yes, Meg makes a very good point. It helps to make friends of the receptionist, because it's the receptionist that will decide, is the member in or aren't they? Because often an elected official will be in their office and their door will be closed. So you can't really see if they're in there or not. You don't know if they've got anything else scheduled or not. I've done my little 30-second pitch to the receptionist, and she'll say, oh, well, so and so is in. Let me see if he'll see you now. And you only need 30 seconds. Only need 30 seconds. Yes, yes, yes. All right, yes, the civiccitizens.org House Bill Tracker. I've never used that one, so I'm not familiar with that. I'll be saving the chat and I'll look at that to see. Now, one of the things I like about Well, again, I've got the paid version of Trackbill. Is it very easily gives me the ability, you can do this on congress.gov. If a bill has been introduced in the previous session, you can go back and see all the people who had previously been on the bill. So when I am building a whip list for a team on the Hill and the bill has just been reintroduced, I compare who's currently on the bill right now with who was on the bill in previous sessions. And my first order of business is to get all those folks back on and run those numbers up. Yeah, we love Trackbill. We love congress.gov for research. Let's see. Direct voter business address. Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Trackbill is free. You won't be able to actually save the bills you're tracking. You're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. Oh, I want to follow that bill. You're going to have to write it down and periodically go and check. Um, yes, Trackbill on your phone is free. Right. Mm-hmm. All right. For contacting local newspapers with op-eds and letters to the editor. We use a tool called New Mode. When you have your letter, you can simply put in your zip code, and then New Mode will say, here are all the newspapers that are within 50 miles of your zip code. And then you can indicate, I want to send my little op-ed or piece to all of the newspapers, or I only want to send it to this one and this one. That's totally up to you. So, New Mode. Now, New Mode is paid. We have New Mode. So if there is a bill in your state legislature and you're going, I would like to kind of try that op-ed tool, let us know, and then we can fire it up for you. Yeah. The realistically, when we have these online pages, if the person doesn't have an email address and they say they would, we've already got an email set up and ready to go to your senator, who is Senator ding, would you like to send an email directly to your senator? There are currently no laws against you entering their information in and pressing send on their behalf. As I said, there is no existing law right now. Oh yeah, I see. There's a whole lot of comments about Georgia. Yes, yes, yes. The Dropbox bill. Um, these bills were introduced just literally a couple of days ago. They are in the ethics committee, and as of right now, no vote has been scheduled yet. Yeah. All right. Yes. Okay, wait a minute. Massachusetts. But you know what? Here, let me let you here. I turned the mute all off. This was good. I got this done in an hour. Yay. Yay. Because I did the digital and I did the meeting as well. Yes. Uh, all right, Matt, music on the whole legislative bunch of Massachusetts. Um, Out of staters really can't pitch in that much on legislative advocacy. That's why nearly all the tools require at least a zip code so that it shows where you belong and who is your elected representative. That is why it is so important that we build these tools and begin getting people in Mississippi and all those other states the ability to start signing their own petitions, sending emails directly to their state legislator. I'm going, I cannot imagine what those Georgia senators are going to think when they start getting emails from constituents that are in many of these rural districts. They're like, how did they even get my email address? What? And then people start making phone calls. As I said, in Mississippi, they were trying to get early voting. It died in committee on February 2nd. They were trying to get absentee voting. It died in committee on February 2nd. They were trying to get $8, $10 an hour, died in committee. $8.52 an hour, died in committee. So that's why we need to make sure that people in all states begin to engage civically with whoever got elected in their state. Because for far too long, all these southern states, nobody's bothered them about any of the bad things that they've done. Oh, I want to show you one more thing. Let me go get it. I'm going to give you a link. I wrote an article on Daily Kos with the Atlanta NAHCP, and the article is called Victory on January 5th Unleashes Jim Crow in the Georgia Legislature. So we had quite a bit of fun writing this article with the research that Josie did. We added that, and then I wrote around it, and they gave me some additional language, and I think we came up with quite a punchy story. And Daily Kos is going to work with us. We are going to do a national letter campaign where we're going to recruit other national organizations who have members in Georgia to send emails directly into the Georgia legislature. And that was exactly what I wanted them to do, so that it's not just us, but we get a lot of other organizations. So this gets a lot bigger. And maybe individual offices start getting 20, 25, 50 emails saying, don't you dare vote for this. This is horrible.
Do you know when that shows up in Daily Kos? That first article you did with Atlanta's and
Oh, the article is here. I've got to work with Daily Kos to figure out what's the timeline, what other national organizations do we want to invite. Then we've got to invite them, and then we go. We're going to be working pretty quickly because crossover when bills that are passed in one house go over to the other is February 20th. So we're going to need to get this going by early next week.
Wow.
And as I said, that is always the challenge with state legislatures. Some of the southern ones, they work so quickly. They're only in session for 45 days. So by the time you see a bill, you've only got a few days to try to really fight it.
Andrea, sorry, does it go from the ethics committee to the Senate floor and then to assembly, or does it go to assemblies committees before it goes?
It is going to go from the ethics committee. The ethics committee would have to vote it out of committee. And once the bill is voted out of committee, if they are not going to assign it to multiple committees, and it looks like it's only assigned to ethics, then at some point they could elect to go to the floor with it. Now, if it passes the Senate, then what we are hoping is the Speaker of the House who controls access to the House floor, could refuse to bring the bill up in the House because he controls the floor. Just like in Virginia, the Speaker of the House refused to put our Green New Deal bill in a committee. If it didn't get assigned a committee, it couldn't get a vote. The Speaker can do that.
You've noticed in the federal Senate.
It's called the path to the floor. Who controls the path to the floor?
Sorry, so the Feb 20th date, the crossover, was that a crossover from the Senate to the Assembly? Or what did crossover mean?
Oh, crossover means a bill passed in one chamber and now it's automatically going to go to the other chamber. So a bill can pass in the Senate and then the House has to pass it and vice versa. It can pass in the House and then it would go over to the Senate and the Senate has to pass it.
Thanks.
Yes. All right. I mean, I'm judging by the questions. All right. Soon you are going to be getting some more of the federal bills. So more bills are getting introduced on the federal level. And I think HR 1 in the House is probably going to go really, really fast. But we are probably going to put up a tool to call and tweet at your senators. So while a lot of people will probably be calling, there won't be that many that will be tweeting. And normally our messaging is just a little bit better than other folks. Mm-hmm. And then this is going to go on all year long, because once we get done with one bill, then another bill is going to come up front and center. So they're going to do the For the People Act first. When they get done with that, then they're going to do the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Yeah. So they've already said that's their plan, but they have to get done with impeachment, and they're trying to see President Biden's new cabinet, and they've got budget stuff that they're looking at. So it's quite a little dance over there in Congress right now, or in the Senate especially.
Andrea, did you see Alice Smith has her hand raised?
Oh, okay, go ahead, Alice. You can unmute.
Thank you very much. I was really curious about these horrible bills in Georgia, because Georgia was a state under the Voting Rights Act, whether or not preclearance is still available. So I haven't looked in detail on your 9 points that you raised, but a couple of them look like they might fall clearly under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And if that's true, why wouldn't the Justice Department be go to the Justice Department and ask them to intervene?
Probably because nobody from Georgia has gone to the Justice Department. You've got all those groups in Georgia that work on elections, but don't really follow what is going on in the Georgia legislature. Right. That's a totally different set of groups. But so I don't know if the ACLU has gone, but most of the groups in Georgia do not follow what is going on in their legislature. That's not what they do. And most of the groups in Georgia don't have tools like we have. So we're trying to get them to use them. Hey, we'll build it for you, whatever you want, we'll give it. Notice there's no logo on it. It's a white label tool. We'll do whatever you need.
Okay, so what we need to do is build a contact there. And if you send me the link of the information you just provided, I will be happy to send it to the ACLU Georgia and ask them what they're doing.
All right.
All right, I would like to
All right, I'm sending you, I'm going to drop this in the chat. This is what we put together for Georgia. Or you can use my Daily Post article. It's got all the same links in it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And
So
we'll
they may be preparing lawsuits right now.
Carrot ginger cashew, or do
They
you
may
want Syrian lentil?
Whoever
And we'll send these links out in the follow-up email.
Thank you.
Links,
Much
yeah.
easier.
So, all right, yes, yes, yes.
Nancy,
I'm very happy to coordinate some of through National Voter Corps, some of the work that you're doing where you need to find an advocate on the ground in order to implement the ideas that you're promoting. So, I think this is something that would be right on our doorstep because we're here to collaborate with other organizations.
Right, so are we, but people think we're trying to get in the middle of their money. So yes, that's just fine.
Yeah.
I don't want their money, don't care. So yes.
Great. Alice.
Whoa. There's 106, there's 108 bills now in 28 states that are really bad voting bills. Georgia has managed to come up with a compendium of the worst. In Georgia, in the one bill where they are ending no excuse absentee voting, which has been in effect since 2005, they set the age to, quote, fit the excuse at 75. Everybody in the United States, including Mississippi, it's 65. They are 10 years beyond. And 7 of the 9 really bad bills that got introduced came from the same senator.
No surprise.
Yes.
Andrea, are the 2 new senators allowed to take that as an issue to the Justice Department?
Oh, right. I saw that question, and I'm sure anybody could theoretically go to the Justice Department with this. I don't know.
Okay, we'll put it in their heads. No question.
Yeah. Yes, I do know the New Georgia Project. And I thought someone was sending this to them. Who did I? Oh, Ray McClendon is reaching out to the New Georgia Project. He's the Atlanta NAACP. And so they did an email to their partners today. So hopefully some of the other Georgia partners that are down there will work. But again, they do election work. Election work and civic engagement at this level are totally different things. I know when I talk with the people in Mississippi, they normally hire an attorney to try to track the legislation. And what I was able to show them in 5 minutes, they said, we've never seen anything like this.
Andrea, I'm thinking maybe Gabriel could share about the phone bank training
Yes.
on Monday. Gabe, are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're reintroducing our Monday trainings with our new Call Hub patch through advocacy tools, and so we're gonna have it at the same time we always have had them, which is 7:30 Eastern time, and it's gonna go for about an hour and a half, and we're gonna help people sign up on our new Call Hub platform and just kind of walk them through the process of making these calls. And maybe if Josie or Justin, you could post the link again to our Georgia Vote kind of orientation that has the the whole process of signing up, and it also has a link to the Action Network sign up event. So I think I still need to update that event to include the Zoom link in a couple parts of it. So just know that that will be coming.
All right. Thank you. And I just want to say a very special thank you to Gabe and to Josie and to Justin and to Sean, who have taken so much of the detail work over from what I used to do. Because remember, back in 2018, I was writing the phone banks. I was doing the phone bank training, everything. I was handing out the addresses and Brian, of course, on the addresses. There are now so many people who are doing so many of these things. It is really making it possible for me to go out and take everything the organization is doing up to the next level. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. They're going to end no excuse absentee voting. They're going to end automatic registration. They're going to ban the use of drop boxes. There is one bill that requires you send your photo ID to apply for your absentee ballot, and then you have to send it again when you send in your ballot. They're taking that silly North Carolina rule that says only a close personal relative has the ability to request an absentee ballot. They are also prohibiting third-party organizations from mailing absentee ballot applications to voters. And that's just the quick list of what they're doing. Yes, and thank you, all the different teams that are working. Incredible work. So I know Mississippi is going to be back. All of their bills are dead. So we talked about being able to send emails to all the people who voted down all these good bills and let people say exactly what they think about that. So they were very, very, very excited about that possibility because they've normally never even been able to do this much. And then I also heard from another group that we are going to be working with or are working with in Georgia, where they said now that the election is over and all the groups have like kind of picked up and packed up. They said they had invested in a texting tool, but the group that had done the texting, they had done the texting with, they took all the numbers. So now they have a tool they bought and they've got nobody to text. We can't keep doing things like this in communities of color. It's just wrong. So like I said, I want these same communities to come back and to vote in a big way in 2022 and not be dealing with I voted for the Republican and there's sewage in my backyard. I voted for the Democrat and there's sewage in my backyard. When somebody gets the sewage out of my backyard, I will vote for that person. So we are trying to help resolve or at least let people see we see their pain and we are recognizing their problem and we are willing to work with them and figure out what can we do to begin to turn this around. And we aren't just saying elections over, thanks for voting, bye.
Andrew, we can, since we still have access to PDI, we can export targeted lists of cell phone numbers if other organizations are needing them.
Yeah. Okay,
So
right.
just
That's
let me know if there's any, because, you know, while we still have it for however long we do, we can just reap as much info as possible before we lose it.
Well, we are going to have it until they post who voted. And I kind of had that little conversation with the sales rep. Like, I paid for this in advance, and the understanding was I have it until we are able to harvest and compare our calls against who voted in the January 5th runoff. And she agreed. That had been our conversation. So we again got access to the account. So yeah. All right. Right. We do not, we do have data for the November election. For some states, it's weird. Not all states are reporting yet. Some states are. A lot of states, we still don't have the data for the November 3rd election. That should be in for all states by next week, at which point then we will start pulling those reports of these are the people we called, these are the people who voted, and this is what our percentages look like. So that is coming. But the big one for us, where we did so much work, is going to be the January 5th runoff. That should be our crowning glory.
Okay.
Which all the headlines have been saying it is.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. I mean, nobody has ever seen a runoff election like this one,
Mhm.
especially in Georgia. Yeah, yeah. So thank you, everybody. Oh, do we have another question?
It's Tracy McKendall. You know me, I'm always the 30,000 foot questions. How are you conceptualizing the infighting going on with the Republicans, and how do you think that we can use that to our benefit in how we are moving through this process? Did I ask that question?
They're infighting in Congress now that the election is over. I'm not certain how much we're going to be able to use it with our population. They aren't seeing that, nor do they care. Their issue is my electric bill is still $500 a month, and I live in a 700 square foot house. What am I going to do with that? Or the big issue now is, in order to sign up to get a COVID vaccine, you need the internet. A lot of our communities, there is no internet. What are they going to do? So Reverend Leo Woodbury of South Carolina is going to join us on February 25th. And he may have some interesting things to say about how we are helping with that. So again, we look at what is the major pain point in a community. And they say, we can't get COVID vaccinations because we can't sign up. Never saw that one coming as a need. So we're working with folks to see what would a solution look like. I think it's going to be interesting, and Reverend Woodbury will be talking to us about it on the 25th. Reverend Woodbury is also one of the authors of the Southern Green New Deal, and this falls squarely within the Southern Green New Deal. Equitable access to healthcare for communities. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
I would think the Republican fights are terrifying them because they can't afford to lose more people from their base. is why they're in.
Well, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has lost all of her committee assignments, but she's still in Congress.
Yeah. And they're,
So what does that do? She's still in Congress. She's still getting paid.
she still has a microphone.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did like that we got 11 Republicans that kind of supported Brewer Conscience.
Yeah.
Kevin McCarthy wasn't one of them, but hey, whatever.
11 is more than 10, which it was last time.
Yes, we got one more. Or again, it might have been a slightly different set. So one of the big fights in DC will be lining up 50 Democrats in support of our democracy legislation, because we have 48 that we can count on and 2 shaky ones. So never a dull moment in politics. Never, ever, ever. When you work with election critters, they never fail to amaze. And you're going, how on earth did they get there from over here? But they did it. They got there. So then we just try to go drag some other ones in from somewhere else. So it's going to be interesting. All right.